What's up everyone, and welcome back to Top5Central. Society has lived by a very certain set of rules for centuries, and if you break these rules, you gotta pay the price. A lot of the people who go to prison are everyday people like you and me, but there are some that are pretty freaking terrifying, so today we're looking at the 5 scariest prison inmates who escaped. Anyways, right now, I want you to leave a like on the video and comment whether you've broken a law or not. I mean, technically I have, since I've jaywalked and sped before, but maybe you did something a lot worse, so craziest comment gets pinned for everyone to see. Anyways, with that said, let's get right into the video. Number 5, David Sweet and Richard Matt. Now I know maximum security prison breaks sound like something straight out of a movie, but it turns out that sometimes they happen in real life too. I mean, David Sweet and Richard Matt were both convicted killers serving life sentences. So they were being watched pretty closely, but somehow they still managed to disappear without a trace. The two of them were in cells next to each other, and they managed to team up and get out of the prison in just one night. They were there when the beds were checked in the evening, but they were gone by the time beds were checked in the morning, and a lot of what happened overnight is a mystery. I mean, the cops think they used power tools to drill through the walls and drop down into the crawl space, then walk through the pipes to a manhole just outside. The thing is, no power tools were reported stolen, so if that's really how they did it, then they weren't the only people involved.
Tonight, the first convicts to ever break out of this maximum security prison are on the run 2 days and counting. 34-year-old David Sweat and 48-year-old Richard Matt, both convicted murderers, now gone without a trace from the Clinton Correctional Facility in upstate New York.
They could be literally anywhere. We're leaving no stone unturned.
Tonight, investigators at the home of a prison employee, Joyce Mitchell, now part of the investigation into how these two inmates were able to pull off such a daring and complex escape. Reminiscent of the Hollywood blockbuster The Shawshank Redemption.
Be on the lookout for 2 escapees from Clinton County Correction Facility.
Officials say the men were last seen in their adjoining cells at 10:30 p.m. Friday night for bed check and reported missing at bed check the following morning at 5:30 a.m., leaving this note behind reading, "Have a nice day." In their empty beds, clothing was arranged to make it look like someone was sleeping. Police say Sweat and Matt used power tools to drill through a wall and work their way down 4 stories, shimming through 24-inch pipes. After climbing through a series of catwalks and pipes, they walked 300 to 400 yards down a tunnel, coming to a manhole they sawed open with their tools.
Number 4, Frank Lee Morris. Alcatraz is the most famous prison in the world, everybody knows that, and it's considered basically impossible to break out of. With that said, one group did manage it in 1962, and that group included Frank Lee Morris. Now, it's actually not surprising that he was a part of the escape, because he had broken out of another prison before, and was very famous for being one of the most intelligent people in the entire world. The thing is, he also wasn't a very nice guy, because he committed his first ever crime at 11 and just kept going from there. Anyway, the 3 of them escape Alcatraz by tucking wax heads of themselves into their beds, which they made out of soap that they had stolen. They then found an abandoned corridor and just straight up walked out, before getting into an inflatable raft and heading out to sea. Here's the good part though, no one knows what happened after that, and police just can't figure it out. Hundreds of people have dedicated their lives to deciding whether or not the guys died on the raft or made it to safety, but no one's sure, and their names are still on the wanted list just in case.
Never escaped and survived, except maybe these 3 men. Frank Lee Morris. He was the mastermind behind the elaborate escape plan. Federal officials said he had an IQ of 133, in the top 2% of the population. Morris was serving 14 years for bank robbery. And Clarence and John Anglin, brothers from rural Georgia who were serving prison terms for a 1958 Alabama bank heist. Using stolen spoons, dummy heads made out of paper mache, and a raincoat raft, they burrowed their way to freedom on a chilly, rainy night 50 years ago this week. Or did they? Whether or not the men perished in the bay, as prison officials and federal agents insist, remains a subject of intense speculation because their bodies were never found. The U.S. Marshal's Office took over the case from the FBI in 1978.
Number 3, TJ Lane. So a lot of people who end up in jail actually can't wait to turn their lives around, but this guy, well, this guy is just a super bad dude. I mean, he was serving 3 life sentences when he escaped from prison, and he was locked up in the first place for opening fire on teenagers who were just waiting to go to school. Like, I guess he was also a teen at the time, but he was actually convicted as an adult because he showed absolutely no regret for what he'd done. Not just that, but when the judge revealed what was gonna happen to him, he smiled and unbuttoned his shirt to show he had written quote-unquote killer on the shirt underneath. With all that said, his escape was pretty straightforward. He just walked out on foot with a bunch of other guys. Now, he was captured pretty easily too, as he was just chilling outside a church a few yards away, and he didn't even put up a fight. In fact, the police are convinced he just escaped to cause trouble, because even in prison, he couldn't stop taunting people. Whether that was like by peeing on a wall or giving himself a tattoo.
A massive statewide manhunt overnight after 3 convicts escaped the Allen Oakwood Correctional Institution in Ohio, including notorious killer T.J. Lane.
He did scale our perimeter fence, and again, this is an ongoing investigation.
One inmate was quickly apprehended while Lane was on the run for nearly 6 hours. He was eventually cornered just 100 yards away from the prison where he escaped and taken back into custody without incident.
I personally saw him. He never said anything at all.
Lane killed 3 students in 2012 at the age of 17 by opening fire at Chardon High School wearing a T-shirt that said killer. At his sentencing, where he received 3 life sentences, he caused outrage by wearing another killer T-shirt and smiling. At the scene of Lane's crimes, classes were canceled this morning, the school superintendent saying support services would be offered.
Number 2, the Texas 7. Now, I guess this next one is technically cheating, because it's not just one criminal, but a whole gang. The thing is, every single one of them is, well, you guessed it, scary, and so we had no choice except to put them all on the list. Okay, so basically this group ended up being called the Texas 7, and were all serving super long sentences for murder, ranging from 30 years to 90. When they realized they had enough, they teamed up and came up with a crazy complicated plan to escape, which ended up actually working. They picked the quietest time of the day and lured staff over one by one, knocking each of them out and stealing their clothes and ID cards. Then they split up, some of them walking out while the other ones phoned the guards to distract them, before they all met up and escaped from the back of the building. Sounds really impressive, right? Well, it was, but they couldn't keep a low profile while they were on the outside. They immediately robbed a gun store and a general store, killing the cop who showed up to stop them, and then checked into a hotel. I don't need to tell you that they were caught pretty soon after that, but all their sentences were up to the death sentence, which some of them are still waiting on now.
More than a decade later, what once was the nation's most talked about story is now just memories.
Our daughter, who was quite young at the time, when they escaped from Texas, was fearful that they were going to come here. And sure enough, a week or 2 later, they were here.
We were in Cripple Creek when it came on that the Texas 7 was caught in Woodland. We thought, oh my goodness.
For Woodland Park, the Texas 7 gang will always be part of its history, as the small town unknowingly welcomed the men, inviting them to church groups.
They were here for about 3 weeks, and we didn't know about it until after the event.
4 of the men were caught in an RV park in the town, and 1 committed suicide. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, 2 of the fugitives were hiding out at the old Holiday Inn near Garden of the Gods and I-25.
Okay, here's our honorable mention. Most of these prisoners escaped or tried to escape way after their sentence had been decided, but for these guys, it was the fear of the sentence that made them decide to leave. Both William Carter and his partner in crime Joseph were going to appear in court on a Monday, so they teamed up to escape on Sunday night right before. William was accused of running down his wife and another man as they tried to cross a street, and his partner was involved in a super nasty kidnapping. So I'm guessing they thought they had no chance of doing well in front of a judge. Instead, they crawled through the air vents into an empty room near the exit, then ran outside, jumped over a fence, and escaped. Everything would have gone fine, but they set off an alarm as they left the room, which meant people were on their tail pretty quickly. Still, they weren't found within the first couple of days, even with everyone out looking for them, but eventually were caught just a few weeks after in New Orleans.
The search continues for these 2 men who somehow got out of their cell and tunneled through an air duct to get free. With the list of crimes these 2 reportedly committed, the community is on edge.
This is the last known image of the 2 violent inmates who escaped overnight.
Unknown direction of travel, unknown clothing description. Proceed with caution.
Caught on surveillance camera crossing over a levee heading towards the Mississippi River. The duo, who police call armed and dangerous, broke out of jail in Caruthersville, Missouri by escaping through the ventilation system, setting off an alarm before jumping over a fence behind the building.
2 inmates were able to climb through an air duct and gain access into a supply room and took some kind of object and pried the doors open.
Number 1. El Chapo. There are many criminals so famous that everybody knows their names, but El Chapo is one of them. I'm guessing most of you will have heard of him, but if not, all you really need to know is that he was one of the most famous drug lords in Mexico, and was in charge of a giant cartel before he was finally locked up. Anyway, his stay in prison didn't last as long as the police expected, because he managed to escape maximum security, and the way he did it is completely incredible. Starting in the shower, he managed to dig a tunnel 30 feet down and add ladders, before digging a tunnel that went on for a mile outside the prison. The thing is, we're not talking about like an ordinary tunnel. It was exactly his height, reinforced with wood, and even had a lighting and ventilation system. Not just that, but there was a modified motorbike running on a track down there too, so he could ride out to freedom instead of walk. When he was finally back above ground, he was so far away that nobody had a chance of finding him, making it one of the most successful escapes ever. Well, that is until he got caught again.
Look at your TV screen right now. This is on the search for fugitive drug lord El Chapo, okay? Pay close attention to this video. Mexican authorities have just released this closed-circuit video from inside the prison showing Joaquin El Chapo Guzman in the final moments before he broke out. So he paced back and forth, you saw that, and then in his cell, and then he goes around where the toilet is, and then you see the dramatic moment. There it is right there. Well, Chapo disappears into the tunnel. There he is. Now he's gone. At least 49 people have been questioned in connection with the escape in Mexico's Interior Ministry. Minister says he has fired the prison director, and other prison officials. The dramatic moments just before or just when El Chapo disappears into a tunnel. There it is, right there on your screen.
Roll back and forth. See that? There's buckets left behind, and look at this. Left behind oxygen tanks as well, in order for them to survive down here. It is a very tight space. I can't even stand up. I'm about 5'10". I can't even stand up all the way. It is just a remarkable feat of engineering.
And there's our video on the top 5 scariest prison inmates who escaped. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like down below and subscribe to see when I upload a video. Also, if you have your own top 5 or top 10 idea, feel free to use your Extremely Handy form in the description to submit it. With that said, thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.